Right, hey guys, what's up? How's it going? Welcome to the first comic book radio show of the year. Last night, Open Mic Monday was canceled, and I had to get a couple last minute things done. But that's why we're on today. Comic book radio is basically it's a hodgepodge of sorts. So it's like Open Mic Monday. You could still come on and promote. You get a little bit more time actually, or you can get feedback on a piece. We can talk anything comic related. You can ask questions about Alterna. You can ask questions about whatever. Again, anything comic book related. I'm happy to have a conversation with you guys about. Before we get started, I want to talk to you guys and say hello to the chat. Raiden Radio, what's up? Says first, hail the fans, hail the chat, and hail Publishin' Pete. Hail you, Raiden Radio. Thank you for joining today. Abominable Grizzly says, all right, what is this about? What is this about? You'll see. I got a couple topics I want to talk about, but you guys steer the course of this show. I don't really do too much steering. Usually it's just I introduce something and then we go from there. Revens Saber, what's up? Hope you're doing well. Abominable Grizzly says, oh, I can see my house from here. Where are you? Good afternoon, indeed. Statistical Zero says, oh, hey, I actually made this one. Hello, all. Thank you also, Stato, for putting the link up to the Alterna Winter Campaign. 15 hours left. 15 hours, and then we go in demand. So a bunch of different things are going to come down. I'm going to stream again tonight on the Alterna channel just to wind things down a bit and talk about what's getting taken down when we go in demand. Advertising perks. You guys have until the end of the day today. El Padrino says, hey, Slapnuts. Hey, El Padrino. Bonald Grizzly says, I think this is the episode where Pete reveals it's he who has been printing the Alterna books all along. Man, I wish I had space big enough, and I wish I had a printer, but I don't. We have to get them printed elsewhere, like most people do. Goodness, I can't imagine printing all the books myself and binding and all that other stuff. Even if I had like $2 million, which is about what it would take to have the books, the everything needed, the printing press, the whole setup, I would not be purchasing a printing press. Yeah. Depressive Sophomore says, hello, y'all. Hey, what's up? Shadowhawk backs. Hey, what's up? How you doing, Shadowhawk? We got Splat Guts here, too. Oh, there's Splat. Oh, are you talking to El Padrino? I don't even know. Splat Guts says, I got to back this campaign today. Yes, make sure you back it today, especially. Just a quick refresher, the trading card binder, the mugs. Tiny Tim mug already sold out. So the Alterna mug, advertising perks. A couple other things, the prints, the 6x9 prints, those are coming down too. So make sure if you guys want anything other than the books are a safe bet. Those are going to stay up in demand. Not to say that you shouldn't back the books. You absolutely should back the books, but there's a couple things getting taken down because also they're up on the Alterna site right now. So it makes no sense to leave them on the campaign. Eloise, what's up? Hope you're doing well. We got Biff Bam Boom Comics here. Hope you're doing well too. We got Paul Riley in the house. Golden Tree TV. Kier, also awesome. Epic Titus Captain. What's up? We got Jay Lee here. Peyton Holden. Hope you guys are doing well. Okay, so we are going to be getting into the show right now. Hey, Hyper Kaiju, what's up? Splat Guts, no, there were no secret perks for the campaign. We did a little differently this time. Let's see. Statistical Zero says printers are expensive. Yes, they are. You know, if you're going to have a printer, you're going to be a printer. That's what you're going to do, and that's what you're going to be. You can't afford to operate that press just printing up your own stuff unless you're printing hundreds of books a month. It makes no sense at all to want to own your own printer unless you're going into business being a printer. And I don't mean like a small print-on-demand style printer. I mean the large printing press kind of thing. You know, because you could do short orders and have a nice, successful business not doing so much work. But yeah. Okay, so I want to discuss this today. I made a couple tweets a few days ago, and I want to share those with you guys. These are the topics at hand for today. This is what's been on my mind lately. So I tweeted out, I said, is there a comic book story that you need to tell? That's the kind of story I'm looking to publish. Notice I put need in all caps. Every panel and page just oozing with emotion, energy, and urgency. That's what makes the reader want to turn the next page and find out more. Thrill them to the end. So, not necessarily a story that you think you have to tell, not necessarily a story that even that you want to tell, because want is a bit different than need. I want to publish works from people where this is like breathing to them. If they don't get this work out, if they don't get this comic out, they are this passionate about their story, then they don't know what else to do with their life. I want people like that at Alterna. Those kinds of people tend to tell the best stories. They tend to be the most energetic and focused on what they want to do, and it means everything to them. That I find almost always translates into the work. And then the reader picks up upon that, and so on. So the other day I was looking through submissions. Nice big stack. We usually get about 100 a month. And I don't mean a physical stack, a virtual stack. I get emails. I do get physical submissions sometimes, but people don't do that. That's literally rule number one on the alternate submissions page. Don't mail in your submission. The second part of that statement is also to not DM or reply to a tweet with your submission. People do that anyway. There's a big reason for that. I'm going to get to that later. Okay, so I'm looking through a lot of submissions, and of all the submissions I got, I think it was like 120 something. Only 2 or 3 of them I sent back a positive reply to inquire about more production schedule, things like that. The rest of them, most I would say about 80%, they're not necessarily bad. They're just not what I would find to be a good fit for Alterna, and I don't necessarily know how I would feel about selling it because I'm not really passionate about the story. I'm not. The basics are there, everything's fine. But in terms of the subject matter, in terms of the genre, in terms of the characters, all that other stuff, the title, even, I'm just really not. I'm not feeling it. And in my gut, I need to know this is a book that I can champion in a sincere way. I'm a fan of it, so that's usually how I determine whether or not I really want to sign on a book. I know some publishers out there, they just kind of pick stuff willy nilly and they figure, well, someone's going to like it. I mean, I should like it first and foremost because otherwise I'm being a bit disingenuous when I tell you guys, oh, pick it up. It's great. When I myself don't necessarily feel that way. I think that's wrong. Again, it's no reflection on the quality of the work. It's no reflection on anything other than the fact that, if anything, it's my own shortcomings. But in terms of the creators, sometimes they'll ask for feedback and I let them know exactly that. And I let them know also that I don't feel like I should critique further about the character, the story, make changes here and there. It's going to turn into my story then at that point. It's no longer your story. I'd rather you keep your artistic vision pure than start changing all these things based on what my advisement is or what I would like to see. And then heaven forbid you change all those things, you go through all that work, and then you either get rejected or the book doesn't really do well. And then you're like, man, I should have just stuck to my guns and just went elsewhere. The book could probably do better if you self published or if you went with another publisher that felt passionate about your book. It's strange to find a publisher who feels more passionate about your work than you. You should always, I think, be the most passionate person about the story you're telling. Some people, obviously, that's not the case. Sometimes you do it for so long, or whatever happens, especially in the corporate world, things change. But as far as creator-owned comics, which Altern is 100% creator-owned, that's the other thing that I don't want to do in terms of telling you what story to tell. I'm here to have someone bounce ideas off of me when they're actually here for a while and say, well, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? I'll make a suggestion on title, or I'll make a suggestion on the cover if something's not dynamic enough, and little things here and there when a submission obviously comes in. If someone is right at the precipice, but they need to have better lettering or inking, or the proportions aren't quite there, stuff that's the fundamentals, I don't mind giving a critique on that. But when it comes to the story itself, the characters, I'd rather you guys just stay pure to what kind of story you want to tell, as opposed to saying, well, if I change this, would you then accept it? That's not my department. I don't want to do that. That's a very slippery road. to go down. Let's see what you guys are thinking about here. And again, feel free to join the topic of conversation if you want, or bring your own topic of conversation. The link is pinned to the top of the chat. This show is going to be about an hour or so. So till 2 my time, 2 Eastern time. I don't know where it is by you, but an hour is pretty well, that's not relative. An hour is pretty consistent. Let's see. We got a question here, I believe. Oh no, it's a statement. RC Gates says, "Hey Pete, watching while I work. Are the hockey jerseys staying up after today, or are they coming down as well?" The hockey jerseys stay up, so those are staying up. Those will not be taken down, so don't worry about it. Just in case, if you need to get, because we added those so much later on, practically towards the end of the original 30 days. Those are going to stay up in demand. So if you need some more time, don't sweat. You got it. Eliza Barr says, "Greetings, Lore Masters Samedi." Greetings, Eliza Barr. Hope you're doing good. Let's see. Eric wants to know, can we mail chocolates, though? Don't mail anything that you don't want me to consume or destroy. So chocolates would apply. Although I don't know if I'd eat them. I got a couple people out there that would love to do something to those chocolates. El Padrino says, or mail them. If you mail them after the submission rejection, I'm going to be very, very curious and a bit precautious. El Padrino says, "Listen, Pete, I have this cool story that I think would fit Alterna. It's about 50 dwarves and a giant lion." Goodness gracious. Let's see. Raiden Radio says, "Years ago, I submitted a eudaimonia. I guess you were put off by the title." There's a couple different things with your submission. I don't want to get into it. I don't want to get into it publicly, though, unless you want to go into it publicly. And if you do want to get into it publicly, join the show and let's talk about it. Epictetus says, "Pete, talking in the abstract is often not very productive for people. Could you show a particular story that you feel fulfills those requirements, and how does it work?" Well, I'm not talking in the abstract, am I? So when I say, is there a comic book story that you need to tell? Well, that's the kind of story that I'm looking to publish. I have plenty of examples. Every single thing I've published at Alterna. There you go. So I'm not talking in the abstract. I'm not talking in the abstract at all. There's a lot of proof out there. So he goes, "Of course, I know what's already been published already fulfilled those requirements, but it's the how and why that I feel would help your point come across better to everyone." Well, see, if I need to explain to someone why they need to tell a story, why they need to tell that story, that's kind of strange. You need to then kind of question, well, do you actually care enough to tell this story? If someone else needs to be the motivator for you, if someone else needs to give you words of inspiration for you in order to create the story you want to tell, you shouldn't be creating a story. You should just be wanting to do that. I want self-motivated people, people who want to tell their story, that kind of a thing. In terms of emotion, energy, and urgency on the pages that I'm talking about dynamics. I'm talking about different things that are occurring, the stakes that are high. And I'm going to get into that in the next tweet as well. And I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. Let's see. Aloise says, "What genres are you a fan of?" I'm a fan of all genres. There's not one genre that I'm not a fan of. All kinds of different stories. You're talking action, crime, sci-fi, fantasy, romance, comedy. Anything you can think of. I love it all. I'm a fan of a good story. And a good story, yes, I understand that that's a bit vague as to what that means. But generally, there's a conflict, there's clear cut and defined characters, and you can still have a clear cut, defined character have layers to it. In fact, the best characters often do. And you don't necessarily need to have everyone become sympathetic. You can have characters that are completely not sympathetic. You don't relate to them on any level. You don't feel for them on any level, but damn, are they interesting. So you have all these kinds of characters, all these kinds of stories, these different kinds of plots. But every great story, there's a journey that's being taken place, and there's snippets of time, the most important things that you show as a creator. And think about all the stories that you love. Think about all the things that you enjoy. They all kind of carry the same thread throughout. There's no stories that many people at least really enjoy that revolve around, I don't know, something unbelievably boring where nothing literally occurs. I know Seinfeld, the joke is it's a show about nothing. Seinfeld's obviously not about nothing. Every episode has a point, every episode has plots that are woven together. There's all kinds of things that happen. So, really assess the kinds of stories that you enjoy and think about that, especially before you submit to anyone your story. So, I'll get into that reason and I'll tie back into that at the end. But so here we go with my next tweet. So, my next tweet was about this. It says, safe storytelling is boring storytelling. All right. And I'll explain what that means in a second. Push those boundaries, put that hero through the ringer, make the villain unapologetically evil, keep your stakes and your standards as high as you can. Let the reader know that there's risks involved. Entertain. All right. So, what I mean by that when I say safe storytelling is boring storytelling. So, a safe story is one where you feel like it doesn't really matter what occurs here. Everything, everything is just trotting along. There's no real point to the characters. They just obviously do whatever the writer wants them to do. They don't feel real. The story doesn't feel like it's being organically told. It feels like all the character motivations, it's because the writer said so. It is what it is. Nothing really occurs. There's no stakes. So pushing the boundaries. So what I mean by that is in terms of certain genres, in terms of certain characters, there's moments that occur where you think, well, really, should I do that? Should I do that? Should I? It might upset certain readers if this character then does this. Let's say if it's a villain and the character is going to potentially be in a situation, you've written the character in a situation where they could potentially kill the hero. Now, you can obviously write right out of that and turn the tables, or you can push the boundaries a bit and actually have them kill the hero. Now, it's up to you as a writer, as a storyteller, to go, is it a wise decision, though, to kill the main character in this book? And if I do this, what next? That's for you as a storyteller to decide. Making the villain unapologetically evil, we see a lot of sympathetic villains nowadays. That's fine. But look at all of the great villains that you really remember in different things. Someone that really stands out to me is Clarence from RoboCop. Dude's unapologetically evil. All kinds of different villains you can have. Very, very true. But you don't have to explain every single thing where the villain has a sob story and that's why they were the way they were. And, once you start explaining every aspect of the villain to pretty much de-villainize them, and you get just everything's just a shade of gray, right? You need some characters to have this black and white to them, even if beneath the surface, there's shades of gray. To the exterior, to the superficial, during the various points in the story, you need characters that are defined enough that you can guess where the reader when reading is going to guess the motivation and where they're going in this plot to your benefit. That's what then allows you as a storyteller to turn the tables in the plot on the reader because they're so sure this character would do that. Now, when you do that and you offer a twist and you turn the tables and you pull the carpet out from under the reader, make sure that you can actually follow that up with something that logically makes sense. Don't do the writer thing, the bad writer thing, that all of a sudden, well, it's the way it is because it is the way that is. I wrote it that way. You have to explain yourself out of that motivation, something that occurs. And you have to have the guts to stick with it because some readers might not enjoy that you did that. And you have to have the confidence and then what story you're telling. So if you don't know what story you're telling, you're going to find that you're going to start lashing out to the reader. Don't do that. You're here to tell a story. You're here to entertain. A lot of the things that we love are surprises. If there were no surprises in a story, if there were no twists and turns, there were no character development moments, both for the hero and the villain, you'd have a boring story. You'd have exactly what I said at the top. Safe storytelling is boring storytelling. So you're going to have these surprises, but you got to believe in what you're doing enough that if the reader does not enjoy it, don't take it out on the reader. We see a lot of creators nowadays that they do that. They take it out on the audience. because the anticipated reaction, or they're not going with there with them, or they believe that a character shouldn't be a certain way. Now, if you're dealing with a legacy character, if you're dealing with something like that, that's very different with preconceived notions. You have to really tread carefully and make sure, if you're doing a twist and a turn here, are you doing it to the right character at the right time for the right reason? Or is it just because? Because now you're not thinking as a storyteller, you're thinking pretty much just as a marketer. You're thinking as someone who just wants attention for this product. And this is no longer a character, it is a product. It is soulless, it is empty, and the audience is going to know that right away. So think about it as a storyteller, because there's going to be enough people out there, especially if you're not going to work creator owned. There's going to be more than enough people out there that are going to tell you how much this is just a product and not a character and not a story. It is just a soulless, empty product. Now, if you're creator owned, which is what I love and which is what I'm always going to be in, I'm never going corporate, I'm never going somewhere else. Um, the story comes first, the characters come first, they matter the most. And that's the whole vehicle in which you entertain the reader. So you got to tread carefully with certain things, but understand your role as a storyteller. Your role as a creator is not to dictate how the audience feels about things, how they interpret things. Your role as a storyteller is to tell the story, is to create, is to try and entertain. I see some people out there that are like, no, you should feel this way about this thing, this character. Doing it wrong. Doing it wrong. Kier says writing is hard. It's all hard. Drawing is hard. Coming up with all kinds of different ideas is hard. You know, every job is tough. Every job is tough, and I don't mean creatively. I mean everything. Everything everywhere is tough. Everything everywhere is difficult. You know, everyone plays a part. Everyone has a special purpose. You know, it's not just who gets paid more, who gets fame, who gets fortune. Everyone has a purpose and a role. Everyone is needed. Everyone's important, and that's always been my philosophy. At least, we can't have this world with just one kind of person. It's impossible. Statistical Zero says you're coming in clear, Pete. People that place a priority and excitement on their work, and not someone that will get to it when they get to it and ho hum around it. Pretty simple. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Let's see. Statistical says action, sci-fi, romance, comedy. You're describing 80s cartoons, Pete. Yeah, they had everything, right? I think that's why they've become so timeless. Is that they didn't fret from incorporating and weaving in all kinds of aspects, all kinds of genres into a story. That's exactly what I'm going to be doing with King Cryptid. That's why I love it so much. That's why I'm so excited about it. That's why I know I can tell stories in that universe with these characters for the rest of my life. Because even when I find that I'm writing out plot ideas and different things like that, that one idea spurns 2 or 3 more. It's like the Hydra, you know. So as I get one down, I'm like, man, now I could do maybe this, or I could set up something like this. And the ideas keep spiraling out and they keep growing. Once you find something that you can be really excited about, then you kind of know, I think, as a storyteller, that this is something special. But there's, of course, and I've done this before too. There's stories I just want to tell, and then that's it. The Chair was like that. I just wanted to tell that story, and that was it. I didn't want to tell a prequel, a sequel, nothing. Just that snippet, that vignette in time with those characters, and that's it. In and out. People have asked for sequels and prequels of that. That's, to me, that's not the point of why I told that story. Telling and providing more backstory or events that come after ruins the initial purpose of what I set out to do with that original story. And, you know, maybe I could have had a cash grab on that at the time when people were really asking for more. But to me, that cheapened what I wanted to do with it. So that wasn't a story that I felt like I set it up for the future. I was excited about the characters in telling more stories. But this thing with King Cryptid is very, very different. Let's see. Epictetus, I'm going to just call you EC. I'm not asking for you to inspire the writers. Let me help you out. You can see the difference between good stories when looking at adaptations. Is there a book that you like that got turned into a movie, and yet you feel it didn't live up to it. Often that is because the movie makers were not fans of the original work. So what's the difference between the movie and the book? Well, that's not really the case. No, that's not really true. A lot of the times when books that get turned into movies, what happens is that when you're a fan of the book first, you imagine things playing out differently. You imagine what the characters look like, and everyone has their own thing. There's a lot of people who maybe agree on certain things, but the more you'll talk to people about a certain book, and I mean just a book, not even anything that's like a comic that got turned into a movie, a book that doesn't even have any visual cue. Um, it doesn't matter how much the author describes things, it doesn't matter anything like that. People will still envision certain things. And then when there's something that gets turned into a film, often people will be like, oh, the book was better than the movie. They flesh out different scenes. The characters are not necessarily who they would envision them to be. But when you're talking about, let's say, a comic that gets turned into a movie, there are certain people that aren't necessarily fans of the source material. But if you think about it as well, conversely, Christopher Reeve was not a fan of Superman. He didn't really read much Superman. Um, and most people think he's the best Superman that ever played the part. There's all kinds of people like that. All kinds of people in that scenario. Most of the actors that played those iconic parts were not really fans of the characters. Barely even read the comics. So it's it's not really something you can say that goes both ways in terms of. And then there's also some cases where people don't make a really good movie at all, and they were actually really fans of the source material. So there's a difference with the adaptation part. I think you're getting a little bit away from the point I'm making, because now you're talking into adapting another piece of someone else's material when I'm talking about bringing your own material to the fore. So, yeah. Abominable Grizzly says, heck yeah, and placing curse words all over the place does not equal excitement. Exactly. This is true. This is very true. And, and even the same thing goes for anything that's relatively gratuitous, not just language, but violence or anything like that. It depends. How are you pushing it? Because if a book is all about gratuity, in terms of the excessiveness of violence and language and sex or nudity or anything like that, you really have to understand what kind of book you're making. And those books can often be successful as long as you get the kind of book you're making. But so you have to keep your audience in mind too when you create your work. Now you have to also find that if you're not excited about because you could tell a story about anything. Um, some people think, well, how can I tell a story that's a Western? I usually just write crime. Well, there's all different kinds of ways you can tell the same kind of story in a different kind of setting. But if you don't know how to tell a certain story, you research it. You research certain things, certain aspects, and especially if you tell a story that's ongoing, that thing's going to grow over time. If you're telling a short story, I said this before, with it came out in a Wednesday anthology. You're talking about a story that's going to then be, you only got a couple pages. So you're talking about a story that's going to be more plot driven than character driven. And what I mean by that is it's about the plot and how the plot progresses, as opposed to the character and getting to know the characters and understanding their motivations and all other stuff, because you only have a limited amount of time. So if you got a limited amount of time with a limited amount of pages, how much can the reader really get to know this character? So you got to make sure your characterization is extremely strong, almost in some cases with a short story, one dimensional, because it's all about the plot and about how the plot progresses. You could tell a fantastic story in one panel. There's many people that do. There's tons of memes out there. Memes are one panel storytelling. But it's why? It's because it's a plot. It's to the point. You're not getting to know the character that's struggling or having a conflict or what their personality is like. It's just, no, this is the point of it. Boom, done. So that's how you have to approach short story storytelling. So when it comes to It Came Out on a Wednesday and other short story anthologies, I often tell people, this is very character driven. It's not plot driven. So it's kind of confusing. It feels like you're familiar with the character because you're the one creating the story here. But it feels like it's in the middle of something, and it feels incomplete because the plot kind of goes nowhere, and it services more a showcase for the character as opposed to. Now, when you already know the character, like let's say if Alterna did a short story anthology based on all the different books that already exist at Alterna, and every single thing got a short story, you could play a little bit more with the piece. That depends upon you knowing the character. Will it still be as successful as someone that just has their characters there and tells a plot driven story in that time frame? Probably not. But you can still do that kind of storytelling. Someone already knows about the character. So there's differences when you're thinking about certain things. Infinity Comics says he's alive. Yes, I am alive. Let's see. Epic is what you would like to be known as. So I think I saw that before down there. So it says, let's see. Oh, I think that cut off from the other thing. All right, let's see. Statos says, reminds me of that scene in Taken where Neeson shoots his best friend's wife in the leg to get information. Nobody saw that coming. Yeah. When there's certain parts where you push a character's boundaries in a way where it's not betraying the character, but you have motivation already instilled that defines that moment. Some characters, maybe that wouldn't happen. Maybe it's Batman interrogating somebody, right? To use a mainstream character that you probably are familiar with. And instead of dangling them over the roof or anything like that, maybe they just snap their arm. Their arm just breaks. Depends on what is occurring in that moment. What kind of urgency is involved? What kind of emotion is there that you can push the boundary within that scene? Geronimo Draws, what's up? Says, greetings, travelers. Hope everyone is having a great day. Hope you're having a great day too, man. If you want to join too, the link is pinned to the top of the chat. If anybody wants to join, feel free to stop by and say hello. Chris Fisk in the chat. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for joining us today. Pedro here says, catching crab in the North Atlantic is hard. Heck yeah. That sounds really hard. I'll stick to making comics. Chris says, hell yeah, people pay for entertainment, not sermons or lectures on morality. Yeah, oh man. I find that it's often that people are using their creation to provide a lesson to the reader about their life or the audience about their life, as opposed to providing a lesson to the character within the story about their life and their decision. There's a big difference. A big difference between a character learning something, a character going through something. Then the whole story revolves around this. And this goes back again to safe storytelling, because when it's safe storytelling, nothing happens really to the character. They don't learn anything. So it often becomes pandering propaganda type of storytelling, because it's more about what the reader got out of that. Did you learn the lesson? As opposed to the fact that the characters learned something. The characters went through something. They experienced something. The funny part about that is that oftentimes the reader, which they will relate already to the character through osmosis, they actually get the lesson, the moral. And whether it applies to something they do in their own life, that's up to them. I think a lot of us can understand and relate to that kind of thing, where you see certain characters, they do certain things, they overcome certain things, and that is almost a metaphor for different things that have happened in your life, different struggles, different things you've had to overcome, times where you had to be brave, and even different situations, moments of levity, moments of romance and that kind of stuff, as opposed to someone not really having any of that really pan out. And the whole thing just felt like one tedious bore of a lecture, and almost in some ways a bit masturbatory in terms of the way that the creator is going about telling their story. It's more about, well, look how clever I am, as opposed to entertaining the audience. So there's different things involved, but it should always be about entertaining the audience. So I'm going to get to the last point here that I was making, because as I was making both of those points with those tweets, something happened where people were sending me submissions. So oh, and Stato, no one's in the back room right now. No one's in the back room. It's fine. I'm not expecting anybody to join or not join, especially where it's in the middle of the day. It's more that here's the link. If you guys want to join, feel free to do so. So I say this year after year. Please don't submit your comic via DM or reply. As I was making both of those points, I was getting submissions. Some of them were just literally, look at my page. I was getting DMs about, please sign my book. Um, two of which were literally, would you sign my book? I was like, "Wha- I don't, what? Just would you sign my book? Oh, well, since you put it like that, sure. Why not? I said we have a site for that. And if you don't know it and don't know the company that you're submitting to, then why are you submitting? Your book is your baby. Don't leave it with a stranger. And I don't mean like, oh, you don't know who I am. You don't know Alterna Comic. I don't care if you don't know Alterna. That's fine. I don't care if this is the first time you've ever seen anything I've ever said. But it's more reflection on, okay, so now you've seen it. Now you're slightly familiar. Why? Just because I tweeted something that you may have agreed with, are you like, yeah, my book should go here now? That's like, you met a stranger at the grocery store and they were like, nice to you. And you're like, hey, you want to watch my kid for the next couple of years? You're going to drop him off at your house every weekend. Is that okay? It's very strange. Don't do anything like that. Look into a company's submission policy. Look into the kind of books they produce. Even purchase some of the books they produce. And I'm not saying this just to say, oh, well, you should buy some Alterna and be an Alterna reader. And, that's how I'm trying to do whatever. I'm trying to say that what you should do is familiarize yourself with this company that you want to end up having your book at. It takes a lot of time and money to make a comic book. Don't just go, well, yeah, whatever. That's fine. I saw you make a tweet. I liked the tweet. Yeah, you should publish my book. Don't be in that much of a rush to make such a bad decision. So with that, Statistical Zero, what's up?
Hi.
Hey, what's on your mind, buddy?
Now, listening to this, what you're talking about here, I'm wondering how many submissions would you say have sort of a very romantic point of view of what a comic book artist or creator is? You know what I mean? Like, sort of like Jack Lemmon in How to Murder Your Wife. And it's like,
I find a
cartoonist is
lot
like,
of
yeah.
I find a lot of the submissions are like field of dream scenarios. I find a lot of them are like, well, I made it, so it will get published. If I see a lot of creators too that put up crowdfunding campaigns as well, and it's like a field of dreams thing, and they'll go like, I don't understand, like, why isn't anyone backing this? And they'll be upset with the potential backer or the backers they have, as opposed to saying, instead of saying I'm upset about the backers that aren't there, I should do something that gets backers to come. It gets them to actually get excited about what I'm doing, that gets them to back the book. Because you can choose either to make one or the other. Both tweets, both messages, both thoughts, they take just as much time. And we all have that thought. That's a very human thought to go, man, I don't understand. Why isn't anybody digging this? But you got to have that filter to go, maybe I'll just say something else instead.
But it's just like Batman, except he's green. I don't get it. People like green and they like Batman.
Yeah. It's stuff like that where, don't, and again, like that's the road where you go towards blaming the audience. Don't blame the audience. If you've done projects that don't pan out, it's not the audience's fault. If you've done projects on crowdfunders that don't make their goal, it's not the backer's fault. It's your responsibility. It's your fault. There's things I've done where I'm like, man, it didn't quite go as well as it should have. But I didn't go, it was the audience's fault that they didn't do this or that or whatever. I go, wow, I got to reassess. What did I do? I'll do this differently next time. So it's all about that reassessment of what you've done, as opposed to, well, why didn't someone else do something for me?
Right.
And I find that it's the same kind of thing with a lot of different submissions I get, where sometimes it'll be that level of the person is clearly not ready at all. I'm not talking about someone who, they're not ready for prime time. They're not ready for, the big corporate I don't know what the heck that even means anymore. But I'm talking about literal people who will put in the submission, this is the first time I've ever drawn or written anything.
Right.
It's like, well, you should not submit your comic to a publisher at that point. Like, you should at least have the wherewithal to go, I'm diving in, I'm making my comic, fantastic. But I know I am nowhere near ready yet. to get this thing looked at by a publisher, to get it published. I mean, imagine if I just took everything from everyone and I said, okay, you're all published. All you got to do is submit to Alterna. You're published now. I'm going to put your book out. The amount of people who would have their careers, including myself, be over by day one of books getting out would be astronomical. You know,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
it's not fair to the reader to put out something where someone obviously doesn't deserve it because the merit isn't there, the work wasn't put in, the time isn't put in. And then for myself, I mean, what a way to not make a living at all. Publishing something that's clearly not up to quality that would actually be something of value to someone. It's kind of insulting to the reader to just think, well, we can just slap anything together, put it out there, and someone's going to buy it.
Well, I think it helps to fall in love with the process, and that's something I noticed with a lot of alternative books. I think a lot of your creators like just love the process of making comics. It's not a grind. I mean, it's a grind. You know, you're sitting in bed, maybe thinking about, well, how the heck am I going to get the page, this page off of this little thing or something, banging your head every single day about how to draw a panel. But I mean, I think being in love with the journey rather than the end point is something I noticed in those books, and I think that probably helps in going into submissions too. Just loving the process of it versus just
Absolutely. And I
I
mean, if
want to get that
anything,
acclaim.
it's great to read books when you can see the progress and the development of the creative team or the creator as that series progresses.
Hmm.
One series that I know he's pointed it out before too, so I don't think he'd be too upset with me. One series I've noticed that a lot in is Red Koi
Mm.
with Tyler, and he'll point out that about his work all the time, both to me in private and publicly. He'll say it about how much things have evolved
Oh,
and
for sure.
grown, and he's only on issue like 5 or 6 at this
Mm.
point. 5 published, 6 that he's working on. So it's in terms of just that short amount of time. I can't imagine by the time he gets to like issue 20, issue 50. This is a series again he wants to work on his whole life.
Right.
So the growth that occurs, that's going to happen, but you still have to have that foundation. And there's a lot of creators I noticed that they're in a big rush to get something, as if there's kind of a gold rush or a timestamp on when
Right.
they have to get something published or whatever it may be. There's no such thing. So you can be working on something. You can be, and I advise all creators to really work on as many different things as they can, because then you'll find what it is you really love working on. So if you really love doing certain things, grow the rest of your repertoire, the rest of your skill set, but then always circle back to the thing you're absolutely in
Mm.
love with. Because as soon as I know some people will say, oh, well, force yourself to do this and force yourself to do that. Yes, but don't necessarily force yourself to do that with the rest of your life.
Sure.
Force yourself to grow and learn. But if it comes back to, all you want to tell is big beat 'em up monster stories, tell big beat 'em up monster
Right.
stories, but learn the rest of the little nuances, because you could bring all those tools into telling an even better beat 'em up monster story.
Well, certainly worked for Frankie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Every time he comes back, he can do whatever, but every time he comes back to exactly what he loves.
Hmm.
And the more that he does that, he kind of grows his skill set and grows his brand and his readership too. And then it all funnels back to the one thing he really wants to do, which is that. And that's so important. You have
Well,
to, whatever you're passionate about, whatever is in your wheelhouse, really lean into that. Don't be afraid to be not just a jack of all trades, master of none.
mm,
And I find there's a lot of comic creators that often they kind of go in that road, because it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall. Let's see what sticks. And then I'll just, okay, that one, I guess, the one I don't like the most, because that's what it's going to be. The one you don't like the most is the one everyone's going to love.
oh, for
And
sure.
then you're going to be like, oh,
Puke
why
it
did I
onto the
even
page
put
because
that
you don't
out there?
care.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's probably something to what Jack Kirby was saying, like about that old adage of practice. Like you got 100 bad pages in you. You just got to get those bad pages out. Then you
yeah,
can really get that work done. That's
absolutely.
yeah.
Because
Well,
even
great.
I remember even telling you something when you were putting something out, and I was saying how,
About my lettering,
you're.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and about
It
your
helped.
art too. With it's so expressive. You're so good with this animated style. Really put that through every aspect of what you make, because
Yeah, I
it'd be
redid those 3 pages.
fantastic, and that's what you'll find. That's what's
Yeah.
going to happen. And in the process too, you discover whether or not you actually like doing this.
No, I was looking at it thinking the same thing, like, these are quiet I mean, it's quiet pages, but you can make quiet pages, like, interesting and, loud by switching up camera angles and stuff like that. So I'm looking and it's just like it's a little boring. And then you saw that, or somebody referred it to you or something, and you saw that and you said the same thing. I was like, well, I don't need much more confirmation than that.
Yeah, because I mean, even just comparing them, like some of your stuff is just like a one image, and it's not even a sequence. And I'm just like, this has so much more storytelling in it than these entire 3 pages do.
That's probably
And
one of those
it's
panels you just puked out on.
but it's that kind of thing, and that takes time. It takes time
Yeah.
to distill that, and it doesn't just take time to notice what it's like in someone else's work, but it takes time to put that in your own work.
Mm.
Because there's a lot of people out there too. I noticed that they'll have such high standards for certain other things, for certain things that they either are going to purchase or certain things coming out at certain companies.
Yeah.
But then when they put their own stuff out there, it looks like it's not like they're trying to get to those high standards. It looks like there were no standards at all. And
Well, I think
then
part of that's just like, so many people don't have the confidence to do what they're doing. They're like, I got to be David Finch. I got to be Jim Lee to sell something. Oh, Ethan Van Sciver's really popular. I got to put so much detail into absolutely everything.
no,
And
you got to
goes
lean
against it.
into who you are.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they did, and that's exactly why you know who they are.
Mhm.
That's the irony there, is that the corporate mindset is how they're describing things and how people have heard things. Oh, you need the next to this person. I need the next whoever the hell's going to be great. That's what I need.
Right.
We need the next great artist, the next great storyteller, the next great writer, the next great letterer, or whoever it is. The list goes on and on.
Mhm.
We don't need the next Jim Lee, the next whoever.
Right.
Let them be them. There's always going to be people that are going to emulate them and learn from them and then grow from them. But again, lean into who you are, lean into what you really love about what it is you're doing, and feel free to dip your toe into everything. Try everything out. See how lettering works for you. See how inking, writing,
And then
being an artist.
the publisher will end up taking the person that's looked at what everybody else has done and run the other way.
Yeah, it's often like that,
Yep.
and so that's the kind of thing where you just have to have, again, it's that confidence of knowing that what you're doing, above all else, you love it, you believe in it, and you're going to
Sure.
keep working to get better at it. No, it doesn't mean that there's a complacency there where you're like, oh no, this is great, I never have to change or grow or learn anything again, like I'm perfectly fine. No, it's still about pushing yourself. And again, that's where it goes back to me talking about a self-motivated person, as opposed to somebody saying, oh well, let me give you some words that really get you up in the morning, and then you can go draw. If you need someone to do that for you, seriously, there's a million other jobs out there. This is
Oh
not
yeah.
something, it's, again, if you can explain away all the little reasons of like, well, I think I should do this because this and this, and then maybe I can get a movie deal out of it, and maybe there's a video game in the future, and maybe because
Well, if
that's how
that's
they
the
talk
case,
about it a lot of the
you're putting
time.
comics on the back burner before you even start. So you
Exactly.
might as well just do it on the side for fun, because it's
It's like,
never going to go further
let's
than that.
just, yeah, let's tap the brakes a bit here, and just let's start being concerned about how do we make the best comic book possible.
Because, well, at that point, they're going to get it, and then they're going to destroy your baby at any rate. So you might as well just skip to the misery.
Yeah, but that's the thing too, is that you find a lot of creator-owned people. At least I find this, and I don't mean to put these words upon you when I say you find, but I find the fact that there's a lot of people that they'll lament in some ways the aspect of creator-owned, where it's not this thing that feels like an official work. It's not this thing that feels like, well, I'm working on this big name thing, this thing that's been around. It invalidates me in a way. It's not as big or not as important. It's not a real thing.
No,
Until
the book's
someone
out, it's
else,
real.
yeah, until someone else puts their stamp on it, and that's bullshit.
Yep.
And that mindset is so detrimental to not just the creative process, but to your readers too, because you just told them that what you just made right there, yeah, that's pretty stupid, it doesn't matter, you really shouldn't read it. So it's a very strange mindset to have, because you go into it and the sky's the limit with creator owned.
Yeah.
So it all depends upon the amount of work you're willing to put into it as a creator. It is your own business. It is your own property. You can get whatever you want out of it, whether it is that movie deal, toy deal, whatever it is. But you have to put in the work. And first and foremost, that means making great characters and great stories that people really
Oh, for sure.
enjoy. But to hear some people kind of lament that aspect of it, that it's like, oh well, I wish it was like this instead, because then it would feel like I'm actually like a creative individual. I'm being paid by some bigger company. And I'm like, yeah, but you're being paid by that bigger company to tell whatever damn story they kind of
That's
want you to
right.
tell.
For
So
sure.
you can argue maybe maybe at first the paycheck is a little bigger,
Who's the slave here?
but at the end of the day, you look back 10 or 20 or 30 years from now, or heaven forbid, maybe your whole life, and you
And you don't
think
have
like,
anything.
yeah, shit, I just kind of did whatever the hell they wanted me to do, and I bolstered their company, and I got
And they
nothing to
made
show for it.
they sure made a lot of money off me. I should
Yeah.
probably duck off. I see Pedro Ang said he wanted to join. He's only got a few minutes, so he's in the
Oh, well,
back
he's
room.
not in the green room, but
Oh,
Pedro,
isn't
if you
he?
do want to join in, feel like joining in. That's cool. I think he's more saying that he's got 15 minutes and but and would love to
Oh,
jump in, but
right.
yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Donald Delay says I feel like Pete is speaking to my soul. Hey.
No, it's I didn't find it too complicated in terms of like I think there's a frenzy as far as the crowdfunding goes. You know what I mean? Like people thinks it's going to die out at any point because there's a huge rise, and then all of a sudden, when so many people get in, there's a lot of white noise. Not like unlike YouTube. You know, when it started out, you could get on and just tie your shoes and make a bunch of money. And
Oh,
now there's
yeah,
just
yeah.
so many people. You got
You
to
could be
really
like
be
chocolate
good.
rain, and all of a
Exactly.
sudden, like, oh, okay.
And you got to be actually pretty, really good to get heard nowadays with so many books out there. But
Absolutely.
that'll
Let's
prove
see.
your passion.
Oh, looks like Pedro has
Hey,
joined us. What's
Hey,
up?
Pedro.
what's up, guys?
Wow, there's a lot of
Goddammit.
background noise.
Vendors.
What's going on?
Jesus Christ. Every time I try to stream, there's the fish vendor. I want to kill him. Okay. How you doing, guys? This is gonna be real quick, dude. Like you're speaking nothing but truth. Dude, you know where I am. There's no industry here. I've been an animator for 20 years. And in 2 years being in this like indie community, I've learned so much about comics. Like animation, I know a lot. I guess I've been doing this for my whole life. But dude, just being here in this community, participating, getting on projects, helping people campaign, dude, we don't need validation from anywhere to be professional. Dude, you see the quality of the books. I mean, you see like Starlight Cats, even guys who are like complete unknowns. Like I got Butch Cleaver, dude, that book looks amazing. And these are guys who are not like really like, oh, I came from Marvel, whatever. Like that distinction of being validated by a big corporation that enslaves you, and then you end up looking back and not seeing a dime, and maybe they'll give you a ticket to go see the $1 billion movie they produced.
Yeah, well, and especially a lot of the times too, these creators, they get into the bigger companies and they don't want to surrender their great ideas. So what they do is they keep on going along with the company motto of regurgitation because no one wants to give their great ideas. So all they're doing is kind of spinning the wheels and hoping that they got enough exposure that when they break away, they can go live their life and be free and have their great ideas fly off and do well. But oftentimes, though, they find that that's not the case because these companies will bury them in terms of the credit involved, in terms of the promotion and publicity. And then they go off on their own thing and they just bolstered up this whole company and their IP and those characters and did whatever. Or worse, the company has you destroy an iconic interpretation of a character. And now you leave thinking like, well, at least I got out of there. I could do my own thing. And now the fans just remember you as the person who destroyed the thing they love.
Yeah, exactly.
So the company is like the house. The house always wins in the end.
Like I don't know. Like I always see Jim Starlin because I admire that guy a lot. And ever since they put Thanos in a helicopter, I knew that was just wrong, dude.
That's an odd visual.
Yeah. Do you remember that comic where Thanos was like in a helicopter that said Thanos in the tail?
How long ago was that?
That was the 70s, had to be.
That's the 70s, yeah. It was horrible.
Wow.
It was horrible. They grabbed like one of the greatest Marvel villains and put him on a helicopter because it was more
funny.
Like a Kitty 10 story.
See, that's the thing too. I'd love to see the conversation circle around to the fact that at all points in time in the history of comics, there has been bad writing and bad moves. This isn't anything new. And I think the more that we can push towards acknowledging the bad writing, bad creation, storytelling aspect, the more we can have a valid approach towards critiquing our own works and improving upon our own spot. Because if you can acknowledge, okay, they're doing this wrong, they're doing that wrong, but then you repeat basically what they're doing, you didn't really learn anything. But if you can see what they did wrong and you go, okay, I'm not going to try to do that, then you can actually learn and grow from it. If you can spot and analyze, okay, why that is a bad storytelling move, not just because, they changed up a character or they did something different, but because they didn't put the motivation there. They don't have the plot that actually makes any sense. There's no follow through. They'll just reset it whenever they feel it isn't working or the movie's coming out or whatever it is. It's become a marketing thing. So before, people used to look at the bigger companies to say, okay, I'll get my inspiration from them. But Now it's turned into, don't even look at the bigger companies. Look at some of the stuff you really loved that's maybe from the bigger companies, but look at more what other independent creators are doing and how they're pushing or not pushing, because there's a lot you can learn. To quote Aerosmith, you learn from fools and from sages. So it's that kind of thing where you can learn from both, but there's always something you could take away from something.
That almost sounds like it came off a Silver Age mentality. Like, remember when Batman was a merman and Thanos had a helicopter?
Yeah, dude.
Sort of thing
And
like that.
that's the thing. I think it was all the Star Wars craze. They saw what he was doing with merchandising. It's like, dude, we need toys.
I think that's probably it.
Yeah, but that's the thing, that those pitfalls, and I mean, these people are our betters and our mentors, and we're standing on their shoulders, and they're also our cautionary tales, because a lot of them end up living in squalor. Like, there's a story, I forget the name of this guy. He's now like waiting tables, and he's like one of the best writers.
A lot of big names have died penniless.
Yeah, dude, and that's something that, dude, we should take care of ourselves and our own as artists. Like, dude, we have the ability to start producing our own stuff. We don't need like a corporate stamp. It's harder. It's a lot more work. You have to basically become a person and be relatable, and not many people want to do that. But if you put this on the table, okay, you have to be relatable and do streams and let people know you, or work for a check that can get you fired at any time, because not even fired because you're not even working for them, because it's freelance.
Right.
And then you'll go into obscurity and squalor. Hey, dude, I'll dance on YouTube. Whatever. I'm Latino.
Well, maybe easier for you to get an audience doing that. For me, I don't know. But it's not just even the YouTube stuff. It really is, though, about finding a way to engage with the reader, whether it's any kind of social media, whether it's a newsletter, you have a website with a blog and you give updates, or whatever it may be. There's a million different ways you can reach out and get readers to know you and your work. And you don't have to be someone that divulges every single thought you have or dives deep into your personal life or whatever. You can be someone that just wants to talk about the work and the characters and the creative process. You could totally do that. Whatever it is that you are the most comfortable in doing. And it goes back to the same thing with the creative aspect. Lean into that. You don't have to find a successful personality and replicate them and say, well, that's how I'll be successful too. You can find your own path. You can find your own way of doing it. And I find a lot of people often, they get scared, they get intimidated, because they go, well, I can't really do like that kind of thing. And that's the thing that seems to get the big audience. Well, maybe it gets the big audience now, but because they're doing what they do, they want to do that. They're leaning into that aspect of who they are. If everybody did the same kind of thing and was patient enough with themselves to understand that it takes time, it takes dedication, well, you can be just as successful.
Yeah, like having a book with a vacuum cleaner for a head.
Exactly. I tell you, when that came across, and Stato's talking about H.H. Hoover, which is probably going to be one of the biggest hits that we have at Alterna coming out in the fall. And Fabrizio sent that through, and I was like, man, this thing is so unbelievably unusual, but it's so damn good. It's so inarguably good. His storytelling, his execution of everything is just spot on. So even though it's got a very unique, weird-looking character that you can't even see their facial expression, he makes up for that with having side characters and having the character H.H. Hoover, who has a vacuum cleaner for a head, be very emotive and expressive with his body. So you still get the emotion that comes through. Yeah, the body language that's there.
Right.
Awesome. Yeah, dude. Yeah, okay, I gotta go because I have a meeting at 2, but I really want to say hi to both of you guys. And dude, yeah, submit to Alterna. Like, I'm planning on submitting to Alterna, but at some point. But yeah, dude, I love what you're doing with Alterna, dude. And I mean, if I'm submit and I'm rejected, I will completely understand. If I accept it, it would be like a great honor. Because what you're doing with your company, it's an inspiration to us all, man. Like, I have a lot of Alterna books here, man. Like, you're making my day, man.
You. And the thing is, I tell people this all the time, and I appreciate it. Thank you, Pedro. I don't want to keep you up any longer than you have to. Enjoy your meeting, man.
Thank you, man. Take care.
Take it easy. All right, but so I tell people all the time too. I'm the last person on earth that's ever going to say, "You need me. You can't do this without me."
You don't have a cigar in your mouth,
because I did this without me. I didn't go through a bigger company. I didn't go through working for Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, Image, whoever it is. I just went straight from college and I was like, I want to make a comic. And I don't know what the hell's going to happen with it, but I want to make one. And I learned a lot doing different jobs for different people with coloring and inking and lettering to help me make my own. And then I learned making my own. I like this about it. I don't like that about it.
Right.
And then that just kind of keeps on spinning and rolling along, and then all of a sudden people are sending in submissions and all this other stuff, and people way more talented than me, and then lo and behold, 16 years later, here's Alterna. So I'm the last person on earth that's going to say, no, you absolutely need someone else to validate you and put their stamp on you to make sure that you actually can be successful.
It took 16 years to become an overnight success, right?
Exactly. If you're willing to put in the time and the effort, the blood, sweat, and tears, the 15, 16-hour days, all the different sacrifices. I worked 3 jobs sometime during the first 6 years of Alterna. There's no shame in any of that. I mean, that's what it takes. If you're doing what it takes to live your dreams and make them come true, even if you never get to a point where you can necessarily even do it full time, that's fine. Just keep doing what it is you want to do with your life. You only get one life. So many people want to put a cap on what you can do, what you're capable of. And you're capable of anything you put your mind to and dedicate yourself to.
Well, it's all just spending time at the end of the day. I mean, if you're doing that, you love doing that, you're making your books and you're getting better at your skills. And, who's to say it's wasted time if you're having a great time doing it?
Exactly.
Even if nothing else, just for you.
100%. See, Pops, I see you in the green room. I'm just going to put you on for a minute because the show is going to be just an hour and we're going to be wrapping up in a second.
Hey,
but
Pops.
how you doing, my friend?
Hey, I'm having a blast as always. I shared my screen with you. We got something going on. Pete. Enter the Cromniverse. I was dragged kicking and screaming into your world, my friend.
Awesome, man. Well, this is great. So you got this right now as a pre-launch page. It's on Indiegogo. I don't know if there's any mods in the chat that could put the link up. If you want to send me the link in the private chat, Pops, I can put that up in the chat for you.
So
grab it.
The campaign manager, Ryan Nislander, he was like, Pops, you got to do something with all this Crom art. You can't just have all these people drawing all these Croms all the time and not do something with it. So, okay, Ryan, I'm not a campaign manager. I'm not, I just talk about comics. You know what I do, Pete. So I told him, if you want to run this campaign, I'll go out there and I'll see if anybody wants to get involved with this. And we got a huge list of people that are involved in this now. So Jim O'Reilly, Doc Blaylock, Eric Hodson, the Dreaded Dinosaur Man, Brian Kriskow, Six Gun Gorilla, Dark Gift Comics, Edwin Badillo.
Wow, how many creators involved?
Oh, it's amazing. We got not sure yet. Somewhere in between 10 and 14 people are bringing stories.
It's a heck of a lot.
Some of them are just writers, so we matched them up with artists. We got
this is
different
just
colorists.
one volume. Is this just one volume?
Yeah, this is just one volume so far. Some of the scripts that I've been sent, though, actually say to be continued at the end. So I'm pretty sure there's going to be a second one.
There you go.
Having fun, Pete. Thanks for giving me a minute. Y'all go sign up, man. I appreciate it. If you scroll down, you can see a little bit of some of the fan art that we've received, and it's crazy, man. It's always fun. Right there, this one on the left, that's Edwin Artex Badillo. He is
nice.
the first person who ever drew Crom. He's the one that won that Comic Related Madness logo contest way back when. And in the logo was the little green troll. You see him up there in the corner. That was the first time Crom was ever drawn. And Edwin jumped on board. He wants to be part of it. I was really glad of that because without his first logo for the Madness, there wouldn't be no Crom. But I got like 40 or 50 different versions of Crom that different people have drawn. And I was showing Ryan, and he's like, you need to do something. I was like, no, you need to do something. I'll just sit back here and talk about it. That's what I do, So we gave Crom a personality. He's crossing over into many people's universes.
Well, there you have it. So right now it's a pre-launch page on Indiegogo. Enter the Cromniverse. Thank you, Stato, for putting that link up. And you guys can go sign up for that right now. And thank you so much, Pops. I wish I had more time, but I just have
that's
about
cool.
an hour today.
No, that's
So,
cool. CromCon at the end of the month. You guys know what's up. That's what I do. I talk about comics. Thanks
all right, man. Thank you so much. Good seeing you.
Bye, Pops.
All right, so we're gonna wrap it up now. Stato, any parting words for you?
Oh, thanks for having me on for the conversation. It was a heck of a lot of fun.
No problem at all, man. Thank you for coming on and having the conversation with me. All
Sure.
right. Have a great day and take it easy, man.
Hey, you too. Bye.
All righty. So, everybody, thank you so much for joining me today. This was just a short 1 hour episode of Comic Book Radio. Again, for future notice, Comic Book Radio is basically a hodgepodge mix. It's Open Mic Monday, it's a feedback forum, all kinds of things you can come on here, promote, talk to me about anything comic related, whatever it is you'd like to do. It's up to you. So, the next time you have a Comic Book Radio, now you'll know. And also, before we go, the winter campaign for Alterna Comics is at 17,663, 428 backers on board. 13 hours left. Then we go in demand. I'm going to be on the Alterna Comics channel tonight talking about a little bit of what the in demand process entails, what's coming down, what's staying up. And also, if you guys want to get those advertising perks, make sure to get on it today because they're coming down end of day today. There's only a couple left, not too many. All right, that's it for me. Everybody have a great day, a wonderful Tuesday. Happy Lunar New Year, happy Chinese New Year to all you out there. Year of the Tiger. It's the year of the tiger. It's the thrill of the fight. All right, everybody have a great one. And I'll talk to you again tonight, 9 o'clock, the Alterna Comics channel. See you then.